Hi, everyone. This is the Drupal 8 usability meeting for April 24th, 2018. And we discussed talking about some proposed screenshots for 7 enhancements. Also, embed support in media and some issues from Benji to simplify text describing updates in the status report and moving custom block library to content. I think we're wanting to start with NG.
NG appears to have vanished.
That's at the right time.
Sorry, I was trying to close all my browser windows, and then I closed too many browser windows, so that's how that went. Hold on one moment. Sorry about that. Those.
Yeah, you were going to go first, Angie. According to
I know, and I had everything ready to go, and then I was like, "Oh, I should close some browser windows so I free up memory." And then I closed the browser window with the Hangout in it, and so wop wop. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm ready now. So go to the desktop, open 7 before, and 7. Okay. So for the purposes of this part of the meeting, we're going to pretend that I am Lowry, who would love to attend this meeting, but he can't because he's in Thailand, and this is a very unfriendly time for Thailand. So I'm going to share my screen. So coming out of DrupalCon, or like prior to DrupalCon, we did all these interviews with a bunch of people, and we determined that one of the things that we should have as a strategic priority is redesigning the 7 theme. And so Christina has done work on that. Roy has done work on that. And so there's a bunch of people working on like, let's revamp the whole 7 situation so that it's got a design from 2018 instead of 2013 or whenever the previous thing was. But Lowry pointed out, well, we still have this issue, which is issue 1986434. I can paste that in Slack as well. This was the original implementation issue for implementing the 7 style guide that Ryan, Boyan, Roy, and a few other people designed back in the day. So this is what 7 is supposed to look like coming out of that redesign. And as you can see, there are a number of issues under this that are not actually done yet. And so Lowry kind of posed the question, well, what if we implemented some of these unimplemented child issues? Would that be enough of a refresh? And I think the answer is no. It wouldn't be enough of a refresh because, like, I see things like the, this color of tan or whatever mentioned as kind of a blocker, and some of these other types of things. But this definitely does look nicer than what 7 looks like today. And so I have here a series of before screenshots. So here's configuration page before. Here, I'll zoom that in a little bit so people can see. So configuration page, these fonts, this spacing, that kind of thing. And then I have a series of after screenshots. So I understand, I don't know which issues exactly these are patches of, but this is like a combination of patches from a few different issues. So one of the big situations that you notice is different is the font is very different. I think 7 currently is using like Verdana or one of the standard, fonts that has been available since like 2002. This is using, I don't know what font, but some other font than that. That's like one of the web fonts, which we can do now in Drupal since we fixed or we addressed the licensing issues around using web fonts as part of the out-of-the-box experience initiative. So now 7 can go ahead and utilize these as well. So I'll do a couple of these before and after things. And then the question that Lowry wanted posed to the group is, I think, 1, do we feel like the difference between this after and this before is something that we could do in a minor release, just the 7 itself, as opposed to going through the whole, let's make a whole new theme kind of workflow and make it experimental and stuff. Like, would this be too jarring of a change for content authors and site builders if we were to roll this out between 8.5 and 8.6? That's kind of the first question. And then I think the second question is this worthy? Is this a worthy exploration path of going down, or should we just dump all of our time, focus, and attention on redesigning the thing, with the understanding that that probably won't be done until 8.7, I'm guessing. But I don't know that for sure, so maybe hearing from Christina or some folks would be good on that. But for now, I'm going to quick do a couple of these before and after things. So before configuration, here's the content page before. This is what it currently looks like. This is what it would look like with these patches applied, which looks very similar to me. I guess there's a little bit of change with the styling of these form elements, and maybe some of the white space is different. Anyway, so that's before and after there. Here's a before of the node edit screen. And here's an after of the node edit screen. Once again, I'm not seeing a whole lot that's different here. Let me look back here again. This was before. This is after.
Yeah, that's a bit different.
Yeah, it's a little bit nicer white space utilization, I guess, here. And then structure page is one last one. So this is the before. Well, this is the after. I'm sorry of that. And this is the before. So 1, 2. I feel like I'm an ophthalmologist. Better like this or better like this? No. So I guess my stance on this would be these feel subtle enough changes that I really have to concentrate. I think one worry we'd have about updating 7 is if everyone would have to reshoot all the screenshots or whatever of like any tutorials or videos they were doing. I feel like this looks similar enough to the old thing that's probably not going to be a concern, but I'm curious what other people think. And then I'm also curious on the question of, should we go down this road of, trying to get more of these sub-issues for the new visual side for 7 that was made back in 2013? Should we try and polish this off so we can call 7 done? Or how many of those things kind of feel safe to do and that kind of thing. So that's the basic overview. Questions, comments, suggestions?
I like the typography. I thought it looks good.
Yeah, I mean it's an improvement, but if you ask that, if I had to choose to do that 1 year ago, I would say go for that. But right now, I'm afraid it might need a lot of time that could be used. Well, I'm not sure about a lot of time. I don't know how many time it can take doing all of these things, but it can be potentially, it can have problems with translations when you have a new typography that it just jumps into another line and you have problems. I don't know, these kind of small things that can appear with these kind of changes, and I'm afraid it might take too much time for the improvement that it is really for the.
So for the purpose of the new admin UX that you're building, it doesn't harm you at all to build that off an incomplete style guide? Like knowing that 7 right now is kind of in this weird before and after phase, like part of it is the original designs from back in 2008 or something, like it was a long time ago, 2011 maybe. So what you see when the current 7 theme is part of the old designs poking out and part of the style guide designs poking out. It's kind of a mishmash. From your perspective of building the new thing, it doesn't matter if this is kind of in a half-finished state, and bringing it to this level, like with the typography, and I noticed the styling changes on the links and stuff, those things would not help you accelerate your efforts, it sounds like. And you're worried that instead what it's going to do is it's going to draw the same people who need to review CSS and JavaScript and stuff away from the new stuff onto this old stuff that doesn't really matter as much. Is that correct?
Exactly that.
Yeah. Okay. That's useful feedback. Anyone else?
I just checked. Sorry, I'm going to be snarky. I just checked the open issues for core. There's 18,743 issues still open for core. Do you think it would be better to we fix them first before we start doing other stuff? I'm not interested in this. It's rearranging deck chairs. It doesn't help us getting in a better position for the real new stuff we want to do.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
I don't think it's useful.
So I think with Laurie we talked about that in Nashville, and he was pointing an issue just about the typography that I thought it made sense because it seemed like I don't know, a really quick change, but seeing so many screenshots, so many pages and components that we should fix, and the potential new issues that will come after that. I don't think I'm sure it's so good.
Yeah. So I'm hearing 100% agreement so far that probably the best thing to do with this issue is won't fix it. And say, sadly, you know, we missed
this is
the
how
cutoff.
far we got.
That's how far we got. Then where do I point people to for where the new stuff is happening? What's the best issue jumping off point for that?
Okay.
The redesign admin UX issue.
Yeah, probably we should update the issue for that, but we are not going to show the progress of the design until we have a design.
But let's say that this will be the meta issue.
Yeah.
This one
we'll keep on doing. Yeah, let's make that into the plan. Yeah.
2902399.
I think so. Yeah.
And if people want to do work on this, what is the best way for them to do that? Is it just wait until you guys are done making a design, or is there a GitHub repo they can help with, or what if anything, can people who are not on this call do to help further this?
Christina and I had a meeting earlier today, and we're gathering our prior art and starting an let's say more like a vision or project document this week. For now, this is the issue to link to, and it will be updated this week with more actionable steps and an actual plan.
Yeah, actually, if people want to get involved in the design, I guess just commenting on the issue, and we can find a good way to involve them. But
the admin UI Slack.
Yeah, exactly.
And the admin UI, it's pound admin -UI. Is that right? On Drupal Slack?
And
okay.
If people want to help on something that it's not design itself, I would say let's wait until we know exactly how we will start, at least with the new thing.
Sure. And then, so it sounds like the overall like steps in this process are: one, there's going to be like a project plan put together, and you guys are working on that right now.
Yeah.
Maybe to post sometime in the next week or two. And then two, it sounds like there's going to be some designs kicked back and forth somewhere, maybe not on Drupal.org, since Drupal.org is kind of a terrible place for doing that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then three, we're going to propose a design, get sign off from the various committers and whoever. And then four would be splitting that design up into actionable issues, kind of like we did with this. Although we now have a one data point that approach didn't seem to work very well, because it kind of got half done and half not done. So I'm not sure what we're doing there, but is the intent still to like spin up a contrib project or something, or sandbox, and do the work in there, and then once something is kind of mostly done, propose it for core, or what's the thinking behind like the timeline and goals of this guide?
The timing that we are working with is having, ideally, in an ideal world, having an MVP for, like, I would say, July or August or something like that. You said June to have a patch. I'm not sure if that's realistic, but we will try to have something as soon as we can. And I would say it will be like experimental, probably. Because we want to have designs, an MVP design for before the Frontend United.
Okay.
So the theming, the theme itself, the development of the theme can start a little bit before or right after that.
Perfect. Okay. And then there's also dev days in right before this deadline. So this deadline, the week of July 18th, is alpha. What that means is that by alpha's basically feature freeze. So that means a patch would have to have been in the queue. It had to have gone through a couple of rounds of review, RTBC, needs work cycle, and I'll have all the appropriate sign-offs and stuff and be in a committable state by July 18th. So that time frame sounds good because I think Frontend United is the end of May. And that's like the first stop. If the designs are done by then we would, be able to do some actual coding stuff during that sprint. And then the second big event is Dev Days. That's the first week of July. So just basically right before this. So if we were in like the finishing touches phase by Dev Days, ideally there's going to be enough core committers at Dev Days that they could help see that in. Then that actually sounds great. Okay, cool. Thanks. So anyway, I will leave a comment on this issue to the effect of thanks, but no thanks, and direct people instead to this issue and tell them that there'll be an update posted to that issue sometime in the next couple of weeks, and to join -admin or #admin UI to coordinate with Sikrina and Roy if you're interested in helping. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Another event where we might drum up some interest and possibly help is Design for Drupal, which will be in Boston in late June.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Anybody going to that?
I am.
Okay.
NG, when in June is that?
That one's June 27th to 29th, it looks like.
Okay. I hadn't had plans to, but I fucking live down the street, so I could do it.
It's going to be Wednesday to Friday, I think. It's not a weekend as it has been in the past.
Okay. That shouldn't be impossible. Yeah, I could potentially go to that. There's still time for me to buy tickets, right? Oh, yeah.
I assume so, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tickets on.
Okay. Yeah, that's another great opportunity to get some work done on this. That would be kind of after that. Frontend United kind of being the big like sploosh, kind of here's what we're doing, and then yeah, that would be a great opportunity. I don't see a way to see who's coming, but I assume whoever shows up to this is going to be a bunch of front end people. So having this thing broken out into components or however is the best way to get people to stuff they can work on independently. If we can manage to do that by then, that would be fantastic. And then it's already done for Dev Days as well, which is going to be like the week after this. So cool. Okay. Thanks a lot, everybody. I appreciate it.
We definitely know that we need a technical lead on this.
Is that specific help you're looking and asking for?
Sorry?
Is that some specific help you're looking and asking for? Like,
Yeah, earlier today we discussed what we need in the team, right? And of course we would need more designers to extend the concept into all the nooks and crannies that we need to design for. But we would definitely need a senior front-ender who can get that whole workflow of starting a concept project and pulling core patches from it every now and then. Yeah, help us get that in place as a workflow. I mean, we'll reach out to people, but let it be said here as well.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're interested in the new admin experience looking awesome, and you have some experience and how to split things up and how to actually do implementation of a style guide, talk to Roy and Christina.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right, let's move over to embed if you have it available, Adam.
I do have this up. So let me just kill my IMs and things. That shit is really embarrassing. Anyway, how do I can never remember how to screen share. There we go. Okay, cool. Come on, Google. What are you doing? Okay, can you guys see my screen now? We good?
Hello, me. Yeah.
Can we see it? I assume we can see it.
Yeah.
Okay. So here
Nice.
is my Drupal 8. It is installed 8.6.x with the O-embed patch in its latest form. I was actually just doing doc comment fixes on the test, so hopefully I didn't break it. So you add so this is basically gives you a new source plugin for media, and you would use it by creating a new media type, which we might end up shipping one of these with standard. You have this media source called remote video. And this source is, for security reasons, this source is hard-coded to only allow YouTube and Vimeo out of the box. That can be extended. However, you need to write a little bit of code in order to do that, which we figured it's probably, since O-embed can be dangerous, we figured it's like, we'll give you the most common stuff, and then if you want more, maybe you need to know how to code a little bit. So by default, when you configure this, YouTube and Vimeo URLs will both work. You could limit it to either YouTube or Vimeo, but I want to use both just to prove it works. So you create this. It's really like any other media type. Go to Content and Media and create a new media of this type. One thing you notice is that the name field is gone up here, and the reason for that is we pull that information directly from YouTube and Vimeo. So that's by design. So let me add a YouTube. Does everybody know the hydraulic press channel? I guess not. I highly recommend it. It's like a Finnish guy who just like crushes things in a hydraulic press, and it's really funny.
Big fan, big fan.
It's like inexplicably funny. Like his accent is also very, very endearing. So anyway, you put in the URL of your video, you hit save, and it thinks a little bit, communicates with YouTube, pulls the thumbnail, figures out what it's named, and this is totally a actual. Yeah, don't try it at home if you happen to have a hydraulic press at home. And yeah, it just embeds it in an iframe, which is reasonably secure. It's a reasonably secure way to go out of the box. And I'll also demonstrate that with Vimeo too. And this is what it looks like, in the listing, has a thumbnail, everything. This is all very normal stuff. So with Vimeo, this is also a great video if people haven't seen that. It's amazing. It like summarizes all of the internet in 10 minutes. And it just animated GIFs. It's like an animated
the Slack channel.
Oh my God, I'm going to make your day. I'll totally post it.
Awesome.
Yeah. But same basic idea. You put in the URL, it fetches the information, and it's just kind of a live thing. That's right there. And also shows up in the listing. So the thing that me and Christian asked Christina about previously is the fact that O-embed is a little bit insecure for reasons I won't bore you guys with. But basically we wanted to make sure that there was some way for people, for like site admins to be aware of the security risk and what they could do about it. So what we did there, and I believe this is actually, I'm going to get the security warning too. Where is it? It's in the status page. I think we show a thing. And let me make sure that I'm right about that. Yeah, here it is. So media, it is potentially insecure display, blah, blah, blah. And we might want to add some documentation for this, possibly on the site. I think we have a follow-up for that. But once you want to fix this problem, we added a settings form to media. That's just a normal like configuration screen and lets you put in lets you change this. And then once I put in, let me see, just do that. That's stupid. Yeah, it's not supposed to do. So once you put in something like this, a different domain from which to serve OEmbed content, basically, you are secure, and the warning goes away, and it also goes away from the status page, as you can see. So honestly, that's kind of it, really. This is mostly API level stuff. We're really just, it's just a new media type implementation. There's not a whole lot of user-facing things about it. Let me think here.
If I'm making a blog post and I want to add a YouTube video to it, how do I do that?
So you would do it in just the same way that you would add like an image. You would do it with like, an entity reference field. So I'll just demo that really quick. So I'll add a field here, articles, and say media. Videos. And I'll just reference, we'll say unlimited. And they'll just like reference media of the remote video type, like I previously would. And then if I want to add a blog post, and videos, I'll use one of the existing things. Let's see how it displays. Oh, what?
Yeah, it's hosting from Foobar.
Because I'm hosting.
Yeah. That was a question I had, is when you do insert Foobar, is there any processing that happens to stick the YouTube video on Foobar? It sounds like there is not.
Well, it's not, because the idea is that and we have to document this better on D.O, I think. But the idea there is that you're supposed to have a different domain that points to your Drupal site. And the reason you want to do that is because that way the iframe cannot get to the cookies of your site. It can't do session hijacking, so it's just much more secure. But out of the box, what would have happened here, let me just prove it to you very quickly. Media settings. Yeah, so if I go back to like the out of the box state of things where there is no iframe domain, I believe what will happen is, so it works pretty much like any other media type, really. Once we have the media library in, you'll be able to select these as well and use them in the entity reference field here, as with any other kind of media. So any other questions about that?
In the form to create one of those remote videos.
Sure, let's go back there.
I think you want to have URL in that first label somewhere.
Right here.
Remote video link, remote video address, remote video URL.
Okay, that should be pretty easy for us to do.
Yeah, that's URL alias. Yeah.
Well, the URL alias, actually, I would like to mention that there is another issue open in core somewhere to take. So you know how like on the node form, this URL alias thing is actually, why the hell would I tell you when I could show you? So in the node form, nodes have URL aliases too, but in the node form, it's off to the side and kind of its own thing. Yep. And there is an open issue to make it look like this on media as well. And also for anything that can have a URL alias, like a taxonomy term, for example. But I do agree that like changing this to something like remote video URL is better.
Yeah, it's going to be confusing with the URL alias. Then it's like, what am I aliasing there?
Right. Yeah, we can. So yeah, that's another issue. So it's out of scope for this patch, but we could bump that up to major or something, or mark it as a follow-up, or at least as a related issue.
Sure.
Or can you put the URL alias in the collapsible tab down there? Like it's odd that it's promoted as a first class.
Right. What the issue wants to do is to move this into here as a vertical tab, as its own vertical tab. Yeah. I think I want to say that there's like a taxon. I forget where the fuck you do taxonomy, but I want to say that there's exactly a similar thing with taxonomy here. Let me just double check that I'm right about that. Yeah, taxonomy has the same problem. So I think
so we're using the same pattern. Okay, then that's not a problem with this.
yeah, it's not specific to this, but we could promote that issue and get hacking on it because it is kind of particularly when you have a field like this one where you're expected to put in a URL. I can totally understand it being confusing as hell.
Where do you configure how the media looks like?
How the media, like how it presents itself on like the blog post? That would be over here. Manage display. Yeah, that would be right here.
So, and you have embed content and that's it?
Yeah.
What are options there?
That's it. Like, so the actual field is a text field. So you could, if I used plain text, you would just see the embed asset URL.
Mm-hmm.
That to you very quickly.
So if you would need like specific size or something, then you would need to have your own formatter.
When you say specific size
of the video.
Like if you wanted all YouTube.
What does the cogwheel do if you select embed?
I don't know if you would necessarily need to have your own formatter for that, but the problem with that is embed is very general. So you can't, you sort of have to rely on the dimensions that come back from the embed provider, in this case, YouTube and Vimeo. We do have an API in place to that allows you to sort of, let me see if I can explain this without getting technical. Basically, there's a hook that we provided, and that hook basically lets you change a URL, an embed URL. So it's like, hey, YouTube, please give me this at 1024 by 768. But that's not a formatter specific thing, really.
Can you switch back to embed for the format?
No, I was liking plain text.
Yeah, and no. And what does the cogwheel on the far right do?
Nothing. There are no settings there. Oh no, minimum, maximum.
Oh.
So that's maximum, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Which, let me see actually if I wanted to do that. I totally forgot about this setting, but I had remembered I asked for it. So that shows you how much you should trust my dumbass.
Shut up, then.
Let's see what happens with. Doesn't really respect it. We could work on that a little bit. I'm kind of inclined to make it a follow-up just because the patch is already big enough. But yeah, you should be able to. I would think that should be able to at least, that should at least respect the boundaries there. Yeah. And but again, that's kind of an issue because the thing about the embed provider is it might not respect those boundaries. Like you can say, hey, Vimeo, please give me this at 150 by 150. And Vimeo might just be like, screw you, it's 1024 by 768. Mm-hmm. It's not supposed to do that, but it could. But that being said, I feel like, let me just double check something. I'm not sure if this is a thing or if this is like a bug. 424 by whatever. And that's interesting. Yeah, that's a potential bug that we actually have. So why don't I look into that one more closely and just make sure that that's not our fault.
Because it's doing that to the video, right? It's not applying that to the thumbnail. That's not a field, right?
No, the thumbnail is not a field. Okay. It's supposed to be for the video itself.
Yeah.
Where do you configure, back on that screen or one of the screens, it was like allowed
providers?
Sources are YouTube and Vimeo. Where do you configure that?
Well, currently, because for security reasons, the allowed providers are hard-coded into the plugin definition. So if you wanted to override that or change that, you would have to implement a hook. It would be a very short hook, but you would have to implement a hook to do it. And the reason we did that is precisely for security.
So there could be a contrib module that does that for you, right?
Yes, there could absolutely be a contrib module for that.
There could be a contrib Pinterest or I don't know what you would. Okay. So we're shipping in core YouTube and Vimeo, but not others, which means as new services become popular, we're going to have to adjust this list in core like every 6 months.
We potentially, yes. But the good news about that is it's really, really easy. There's actually, it's effectively a one-line change. It's like deep in the media system, there's some plugin deriver where you add a string to an array, and that would do the trick.
Okay. Yeah, I think
Are
the
there
idea
other providers?
would be I could create, there's a UI to create a provider. So it's like name, allowed domain, save, you know, and it would, like if there was a UI for creating those, that would be nice, but not as a base thing. But.
Right. I mean, the thing about I mean, again, it's sort of, it took me a long time to even begin to grok the embed specification. And it's like, it's weird. It's like a provider is something you kind of get information about from this like canonical database online, which actually lives, it's like a JSON file that lives at oembed.com. It's not really something you would just create. But it could potentially be possible for us to add something to the settings form where it's like, here are all the providers that are known to exist. Do you want to enable these ones?
Or something, or maybe a comma separated list of machine names, or I'm not really sure, but I just mean like, this would allow a site builder to expand the amount of embeds that are allowed on their site without having to involve a developer or wait for a contrib module to be available for, you know, snazzyvideo.com or whatever.
Right. I think that's something we could definitely do as a follow-up. I would want the security team's blessing on that one.
Yep, that's fair.
Yeah. But yeah, if they say go, then we can totally make that happen.
Cool. I'm still stuck on the different domain name and what the flow of that is. So I saw the settings page where you can make a different domain name. That's perfect. What is, when someone fills in, you know, webchickcontent.com or whatever.
Yeah.
What I saw happen is I put a YouTube video in like normal, and then instead of something happening where the YouTube video gets downloaded and then served from webchickcontent.com, I just got a 404 page.
Well, yeah, it's not very obvious what's going on, but the thing is the video actually never would be downloaded and served from webchickcontent.com. What would happen is the iframe would be served from that. So what you saw when from here, what you're actually looking at is an invisible iframe that contains the Vimeo content. So basically, Vimeo handed us a bunch of HTML, and rather than just echo that out without any, you know, which is extremely dangerous, we're sort of sandboxing it in an iframe. So the idea is that the iframe can be served from webchickcontent.com, which is more secure than serving it from the same domain as the Drupal site itself.
Right. I understand that from a security point of view. I'm wondering from a user experience point of view, what's the flow someone goes through to serve things from webchickcontent.com instead of webchick.
They just have, so they'd have to go up here.
Yeah.
And then.
Well, we saw that already, right? Like you can fill a URL in, but then how do I get the iframe to show something other than a 404 page?
Well, as long as the domain that you enter here is also pointing to your Drupal site, you would not get a 404 page.
Okay, so this would be like a domain.
So you need something.
You need a lot of help text or something here, because like there's nothing that would imply that to me. So what you need is a URL forwarder or something that like basically points webchickcontent.com, loads webchick.net. And then you would, yeah, I get what you're saying of what's needed there, but there's nothing in this help text that would imply that at all.
We can definitely
aspects of it, like why this is beneficial. So I feel like we could do a bit more work on the help text here.
Yeah, you'll need to have this URL point to your site or something.
Yeah, we could do that 100%.
And then once you've done that, you'll no longer have the experience that you've broken all existing media.
Right.
Which is what we saw in the demo because you put in a nonsense domain.
Right. Exactly. So I can, we can definitely expand the help text here.
Is this
and then you have a follow-up and be like actual validation to make sure the URL they entered is pointing at their site or something. You know what I mean? Like
that would be pretty interesting to figure out how to do that. But that's something we could file as a follow-up for sure.
Yeah, it would not be part of this patch, but I just mean it. Yeah, I can definitely foresee people go in here. They don't know what they're supposed to fill in, so they fill in something, and all of a sudden, every single video on their site breaks, and they're like, "Oh my god!" You know what I mean? So, helping people not get into that situation would be good.
Well, I'll tell you what. Like, it's easy for us to expand the help text in this patch, so we'll do that, and then we'll open a follow up for
like validation. Yeah, that sounds. Yeah. By the way, all of this is not to take away from the fact that holy shit, YouTube videos in Drupal. That's awesome. You know. So I just want to.
I long since learned that when you demo something to Drupal people, they never ever act enthused, even if they are. So it's all good.
And I love that there's a thumbnail process as well. Like that's great because that was one of my other concerns is you get these YouTube videos in and then they'd all have like gray anonymous person icons. So that's fantastic that we're grabbing the.
That's actually what I was trying to frantically fix the tests in order to correct.
Ah, okay.
And hopefully they're actually fixed.
That's really great. Like, cause then it helps people so much to have a visual, you know, reminder of things.
Okay. So it sounds then, to summarize then, it sounds like what we need is a few follow-ups and a couple of small text changes and also the max width and height bug fix.
Yeah, and when you put in that help text, I think you're supposed to do it by implementing hook help and creating a block.
Right.
In the help area.
Should we do it in hook help or should we do it in the description of the field?
I don't know that I really care. I mean, I would look at see how other settings do that. Like whatever we do for like say the private public file system or something maybe. I guess maybe it could be a combo pack where it's like, I guess we should actually be opinionated about this on this call so you can leave and just write a patch and not to think. Okay, so I would say the hook help should be something like a preamble that's like, it is more secure to serve your content from a different domain because of cookie reasons, link off to a resource that talks about this. And then in the help, because most people will ignore that text, if they even read the field at all, we're lucky. But the field, the text closest to the field they're filling in should definitely remind them that this URL should point to your existing Drupal site. Okay. Otherwise, you'll get 404s everywhere or something. You know.
Explain that. I'm just writing this down. Yep. Explain the domain needs to point to your Drupal site. So formatter doesn't appear to respect max width and max height. Implement hook help, have the iframe text explain the thing, follow up to configure additional media providers. Trying to remember what else came up in this thing.
There was the bug fix about the OEmbed max width and height.
Right, yeah, I got that one down. Oh, and rename the remote video field. Yeah. Field on media creation form by default to video.
One other really
the label on the URL field itself.
Yeah, right. That's actually quite a big one. Mentioning link or URL or something to say, tell people what you want in there.
And it looked like your description was a bulleted list of a single bullet.
Yeah, that was.
It just said you can embed. It said you can link to media from the following services: YouTube, Vimeo.
Yeah, but can we make it not in a bullet?
Oh yeah, of course we can. The remote video field description, not a bulleted.
And then one other very small text thing is I just noticed that when you went to media types, that remote video was the only one without a description. So maybe add a description to it.
Oh, remote video doesn't ship with core.
So that's when you. Okay, great. Never mind.
We actually opened a follow-up to add a remote video type to standard, but that is a follow-up.
Yep, great. Okay.
Yeah. Anything else? Or are we basically pleased?
So is the media settings page things can add to, or how is that? Or is the setting going to show up even if the Embed plugin is not enabled?
The settings are. I mean, we had to create that page for this patch, but yes, it'll always be there. We're not gonna. It's not specifically for OEmbed.
Mm-hmm. So iframes in general.
Yeah, it's just a normal. It's a normal config form. We just up until this point we hadn't needed a media settings form because we didn't really have any settings.
Yeah. Cool.
And it's like a sad bastard form. You like look at it, it's like there's one sad little field on it. Not much to configure. I call that zero configuration. So so I guess that sounds like we're good there.
I think so. I think I hope that you take that as a promising sign that mostly what we're complaining about is a bunch of text.
I take that as a very promising sign. I love it. I'm pleased as punch because like half the things you just said are things that I can either keep to a follow-up or fix in the next 10 minutes. So it's like, whatever,
Right.
you know? I would like to ask, actually, while we're on the subject of media stuff, what is the status of the designs for the media library? Me and Sam have gone back and forth on the media library patch, and we feel the code is very good. So we're basically just blocked on design there.
That's a good question. I don't think anyone on this call is working on that. Emily.
Oh, yes, we've been working on it.
Or am I wrong?
I saw Christina and Roy conspiring in Slack, so I know
great! I like these.
I have 12 iterations. Christina has 7, and there's 5 from other people. Yeah, we can go over them, but then we'd steal Benji's time. I think we've arrived at something. I need to write it up, Adam, and present it in the issue queue for your validation feedback. But I think we've settled on an approach.
Yeah.
And the other person we should mention is Robert McPherson, so we have some accessibility input.
Yes, because Robert, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've actually marked the media library issue explicitly needing accessibility review. We did fix some of the accessibility issues where now we know that we actually implemented some stuff to make the media library keyboard accessible. So yeah, I guess once the designs are done and we've implemented those changes, we'll get we just have to get review from everybody. So that's CSS review, probably another UX review and accessibility review, and then I think we're basically good. So I'm really happy with where that's at right now.
Cool.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Great. Thanks a lot, Adam.
Okay.
So we have some time for Benji.
Hey, thank you. Is there an echo in here? So I noticed this issue, move custom block library to content, which recently got a patch and is ready for review. And the idea is that on the standard Drupal install, the custom blocks are hidden under the block configuration page, which you need all sorts of permissions to get at. And the idea is that it should be easier for a content editor to get to that page and have access to it. There's also a related issue. Oh, I'm not signed in. There's also a related issue to add permissions, but that's another story. So I was wondering if this is ready for review, or if people think this is too big a change and it's going to be incredibly controversial, or I just go ahead and review it when I find the time. There we go.
It's super hard. So these are information architecture changes, right? And I think we've seen a couple that absolutely make a lot of sense, but we just haven't figured out, or at least not spend enough time and energy on figuring out what then not breaking everybody's existing side path towards these kinds of changes is. I'm not sure how it would even break actual links inside such when people start updating, for example. It breaks with expectations, but I think that's the idea, because it would it would ideally be an improvement. Yeah, I think Angie and I went back and forth around these types of changes a couple of times, and we just haven't figured out a way to comfortably introduce these kinds of changes.
And you could do something ugly like create a stub page at the current address and say, hey guys, go over here.
Yeah, or this whole, I don't know if we can, if it needs another umami, as in another install profile where we prototype our way to a new information architecture, or
yeah, it's really hard because we know our current information architecture is not ideal, and these ideas keep coming up that probably make it better. But without knowing that for sure, or at least with some level of certainty, other than like some people thought it would be better, it's really hard to push that on every single Drupal user. Do you know what I mean? Like, particularly when Drupal 7, not 7M, when Drupal 7 is as widely used as it still is, it means people have to do this odd translation like step when they go between their Drupal 7 sites and their Drupal 8 sites, like, oh, fuck, this page is over here now, or whatever, like that kind of stuff. One of the suggestions that's come up before has been what Roy just said, which is like, could we do this in a contrib install profile or something? And then there's these usability testing, opportunities that come up here and there, at camps or University of Minnesota or whatever, and do some kind of like A/B testing, or something kind of more data driven. Then, because what worries me about these proposals is it's always people who've been in the community for a very long time, who know their way around Drupal frontwards and backwards, who propose these things. And it is never someone proposing these changes on behalf of my content authors, who I can tell you are better off with this, because now the task that used to take them 5 minutes takes them 2.5 or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So I always get nervous about these proposals because they seem to always be introduced from a this makes logical sense kind of point of view, which is not a bad stance, but there's a difference between this makes logical sense to me as a Drupal person, and this is what makes sense to content authors who are the ones spending 90% of their time in this interface. And that's where I always struggle. Because it's not like we can't make a change to the IA, like the links are not part of the API, so we can move things around. But it's getting to that confidence point where it's like, yes, this is definitely a change we can do, because it's going to have this massive impact, or even this little impact, but we're sure of it. And I don't get that feeling from the discussions that have happened so far, at least what I've seen, unless that sort of research has been done. There's different ways of going about this. Like there's I don't remember what you call it. There's these things where you like give people a bunch of random words and they organize it into a tree the way they think makes sense, and doing that with a broad enough audience of not Drupal people could be useful. But I just feel like we don't have that content author perspective, and we lack a way of getting that content author perspective when we really need it, which is a systemic problem that we really have to solve. That's it. I don't know. But do you feel like that's an unfair classification of the current status of things, though? Because I'm happy to be told that I'm out of the loop and we actually did do that research and this is what we found.
Well, I certainly can't say that we've done any research on it. So this somehow has to be implemented in a contrib module or profile, and somehow user tested.
I think so. Well, what needs to happen is we need to have some amount of faith that if we go through all of the headaches that are involved in changing the IA, because it involves changes to documentation, to videos, to tutorials, to web posts all over the internet, all these things are going to get invalidated to the annoying translation issues. Like, I'm in Drupal 8 and now it's here instead of there. Like, we seriously went through that in the 6 to 7 translation. It was really hard to get people over the fact that it's admin people now and not admin user or whatever. If that's a lot of pain. So I think what we need to know and be relatively assured about is if we do the pain, the results will be worth it. So it's a cost-benefit equation, essentially. And so we know the benefit, or we know the cost, or we're relatively sure what the cost is. We know some amount of the benefit, but I don't think we know enough of the benefit to tip the scales in favor of yes, it's worth the cost. Or at least I don't feel that way myself, but I'm also not the only voice here, so I'm happy to hear from others.
So I would say that this is something that needs to happen at some point, and ideally it will be great to have some kind of this work done for the new admin UI. The problem is that can actually break a lot the backwards compatibility. So I don't know how involved it can actually be, how integrated it can actually be in this process. But I do think that it should happen.
So the admin UI is potentially a place we could prototype some of this. Like if the admin UI came with a supporting module, and the supporting module could do the hook route alters or whatever the hell it is nowadays that you use to move things around. That is potentially a place we could play with this. That would be better than a contrib project in that it would get more eyeballs on it. So maybe I hesitate to introduce more dependency, or kind of like these initiatives kind of become like Christmas trees, and everyone wants to hang on the Christmas tree, right? That's like vaguely related to the tree. So IA is not vaguely related to the admin experience. It's very directly related to the admin experience. But I'm trying to balance that with the fact that I keep hearing that solving this out of the box admin experience look and feel is critical to Drupal's adoption. And so then it starts to become, well, how many blockers do we reasonably want to put in front of that before we get the results out to people and we reduce their pain? So I don't know, but I would say like that actually would be useful as a experimentation place potentially, because that's an optional thing. You're installing an experimental thing optionally. It's not required that every single Drupal site uses this. It would allow us to get early feedback as long as we did that, in a constructive and assertive way. Like, we don't need more feedback from more core developers on what they think. I feel like we can get feedback from core developers at any time about what they think. What's really hard to get is the feedback from the people who use the interface daily. But that would give them something that's like, here, just check this box in core instead of go out and find this contrib theme. Now go out and find this contrib install profile. And even though you've already got a site that's working fine, we're going to give you this other site that's bare bones. So like, I think if we can do it via a theme module combo, that's better. But it's, anyway, I don't know. But I also am sensitive to like, I don't want to throw a whole bunch more stuff on Christina and Roy's plate when they right now have a pretty well-defined, clear path, which is take the 7 style guide and make it better, and not also tackle let's redesign all of the IA stuff. But we could.
No, we already defined that as 2 stages. So we're focusing on a visual refresh first, and funky stuff in actual how things work and where things can be found is for the 2nd stage, where we actually start leveraging React to create better UIs. And in a sense, we do need some kind of blank slate approach there. I mean, Drupal is backward compatible, but somehow we do we kind of need a phoenix from the ashes scenario somehow, I think, too.
So then for the people interested in working on this now, who don't particularly want to wait until your 7 refresh is done and React UIs are, because who knows when that's going to happen, 8.7 at the earliest. I guess I guess you could do this as either a profile or a module, but the way to do it would be get something in there that's doing the rearranging of things and stuff that, I mean, if it was a module, I guess it could be installed on an existing site, and that would be nice.
Okay, modules can do that, right? Modules
I believe modules can do it. I know how to do it in 7 anyway. I don't know that I could say how to do it in 8, but I assume it's possible. But at any rate, we need a testing ground, is what.
Yeah, but we're talking with people who want to do usability testing. So, and they want to do it focused on content authors. They want to do it with a preset. So maybe within Umami with default content. So not with the empty box as user one. So this could definitely be tied into that effort, because then we could actually run comparative studies of some kind. Okay, good to know, because then prototyping this inside a module would be a very worthwhile approach and effort. And then, does that answer your question, Benji?
Yeah. But then that's great though, because then team, let's redesign the IA to make sense, could move in parallel with team, let's make the admin UI look nice.
Yeah.
And then combine efforts later on down the road when both of these initiatives have some legs and some data behind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that could also work well. I mentioned there was a related issue of adding some permissions for editing blocks, which currently requires the block admin permission, so that could easily be combined into this module if we make a module out of it, and then we could test the two together, which I think would be useful because they are closely related.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so there's no real per issue answer here, but I think these are the types of issues that need this kind of approach to become viable.
Yeah, it might be interesting to like get the whole vision for the IA. Like, it's really hard to evaluate these IA changes on a one-off basis, but if you had like a module that was like better IA module that reads all of the changes that you guys have agreed upon anyway, according to that, that people could try, that's probably a good way to do it. And then breaking out the implementation on an issue by issue basis for core makes sense, like further down the road.
Yep.
Did anyone else notice this clear error?
What is it?
What?
I know my screen. There's no space.
Yeah, there's no
at the end. Okay, one novice issue coming up.
Yeah. Thanks, Benji. You're a trooper.
Okay.
Good find.
Anything else you wanted to run past the group?
Well, there was something else I was looking at, but we're over time already, and it's not particularly high priority.
Okay. Okay, then shall we call it a meeting?
Yeah.
Let's call it a meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all. Nice one.
Everybody, have a nice week.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.